The Space Marine's third heart had been removed while he was conscious. His genetically enhanced body, designed to withstand the vacuum of space, now quivered under surgical lights that cut like knives. Blood, engineered to clot instantly, ran freely across the obsidian operating slab. "Fascinating," whispered the Drukhari surgeon, her pale fingers tracing the exposed ribcage. Even without sedatives, they maintained such dignity. The Astartes had endured 17 days of vivisection. His superhuman physiology, designed by the Emperor himself to be unbreakable, was being methodically disassembled. Yet what broke him wasn't the pain. It was watching what they did to the others. In the twisted spires of Commorragh, where agony is currency and suffering an art form, even the Emperor's finest find themselves reduced to specimens. Space Marines, transhuman warriors who know no fear, discover new definitions of terror in the slave pits of the Dark City. "The Astartes are our most prized acquisitions," explains Haemonculi Vrax, his voice crackling through recovered Vox recordings. "Their resilience extends our entertainment." Imperial records document 47 confirmed cases of Space Marines taken alive to Commorragh. None have returned whole. Brother Tarkus of the Ultramarines' 4th Company survived 103 days in captivity, the longest recorded. His recovered armor contained micro-etched accounts of what he witnessed, scratched into his power pack with a broken fingernail. "They don't want us dead," his testimony reads. "Death would be merciful. They want us aware." The Dark Eldar have perfected techniques specifically for transhuman physiology. Standard pain induction methods, effective on baseline humans, barely register to Space Marines. So they developed new approaches. Psychological warfare comes first. Captured battle brothers are forced to witness the torture of their squad mates. The Drukhari understand that an Astartes can compartmentalize his own suffering, but watching his brothers broken piece by piece shatters something fundamental. Then comes the systematic dismantling of their enhanced biology. Secondary organs removed while conscious. Accelerated healing factors deliberately stimulated, then exploited to extend suffering. Pain receptors isolated and amplified. But what truly breaks these transhuman warriors isn't physical torment. It's the slow erosion of purpose. They keep you alive until you forget why you were created, wrote Brother Tarkus. Until you forget the Emperor. Until you beg not for death, but for meaning. The Haemonculi record each Space Marine's breaking point with scientific precision. The longest holdout, a Black Templar chaplain, maintained his faith for 91 days before his mind shattered. In the slave pits, even posthuman warriors engineered to withstand any horror discovered the limits of their conditioning. Their transhuman bodies, designed to be living weapons, become laboratories for suffering beyond Imperial imagination. And in those dark pits, surrounded by the screams of the dying and the laughter of their tormentors, even Space Marines learn what it means to truly fear. But what happens to those who survive is something the Imperium refuses to acknowledge. In the shadow-veiled corners of our galaxy lies a realm where even the superhuman Space Marines, genetically engineered killing machines who know no fear, tremble with dread. Commorragh, the Dark City, a pocket dimension where pain is not just inflicted, but harvested like a crop. The slave pits of Commorragh aren't merely dungeons. They are pain factories, architectural marvels designed with one purpose: to extract suffering with scientific precision. Every scream is measured, every tear collected, every moment of despair catalogued. The Dark Eldar, or Drukhari as they call themselves, don't torture for information or even punishment. They feed on agony like a drug. Without it, they wither and die as their souls are consumed by She Who Thirsts, the chaos god their ancestors accidentally birthed millennia ago. When a space marine, an 8-foot-tall transhuman warrior who can survive having organs ripped out while conscious, is captured and brought to these pits, even their legendary resilience becomes a curse. Their enhanced physiology, designed to keep them fighting through catastrophic injury, only prolongs their torment. They last 17 times longer than a human subject, boasts Haemonculi Rilex, a flesh sculptor whose age is measured in millennia. And their capacity for pain, exquisite, like comparing a symphony to a child banging pots. The architecture itself is alive with malice. Walls pulse with veins carrying harvested pain chemicals. Floors shift and ripple, designed to prevent captives from ever finding comfort in familiarity. The air itself is laced with compounds that heighten nerve sensitivity while preventing shock or unconsciousness. In the lowest levels, where light barely penetrates, are chambers where space marines, beings who have faced demons, tyranids, and extinction-level threats, have been documented begging for death, not after years or months, after days. I witnessed Brother Tarkus, a veteran of 3 centuries of warfare, reduced to whimpering incoherence in 72 hours, recounts Inquisitor Vale in the classified Ordo Xenos file, Commorragh captivity survivors, of which there are only 7 documented cases in 10,000 years. What makes these pits so horrifying isn't just the pain inflicted, but how the Dark Eldar have elevated suffering to an art form. Pain is their canvas, agony their palette, and they've had over 10,000 years to perfect their techniques. In human history, we speak with horror of torture chambers and concentration camps, but even our darkest moments pale against Commorragh's industrialized suffering, where anguish isn't just inflicted, but engineered, refined, and savored like vintage wine. And yet, the true horror of Commorragh's slave pits isn't what happens within their walls. It's that somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, they exist right now. And they're always hungry for new subjects. But what happens when the Dark Eldar capture not just any space marine, but one of the Emperor's finest, an Adeptus Custodes? The techniques they reserve for such rare specimens defy comprehension even by Commorragh's standards. Even the Emperor's finest warriors, the genetically enhanced space marines, have nightmares about one place above all others: the flesh laboratories of the Haemonculi deep within Commorragh's slave pits. Captain Tiberius of the Ultramarines still remembers the smell. Not the metallic tang of blood. All space marines know that scent intimately. But something far worse. The clinical sweetness of preservatives mingling with the putrid stench of flesh kept artificially alive long past its natural expiration. I've witnessed exterminatus operations that claimed billions of lives. He recounts, voice dropping to a whisper despite himself. But nothing compares to what I saw in that laboratory. The Haemonculi, ancient, twisted Dark Eldar, who have transcended mortality through their mastery of fleshcraft, are the true architects of Commorragh's most horrifying innovations. Their laboratories hum with a sickening melody. The whir of arcane machinery, the bubbling of nutrient tanks, and always, always, the screams. Their tools lie arranged with surgical precision on trays of polished bone. Hooks designed to part skin from muscle without killing the subject. Needles that inject agony-enhancing stimulants directly into nerve clusters. Devices that harvest pain as efficiently as oil refineries harvest crude. They kept me conscious for 17 days, says Brother Marcus, one of only 3 space marines ever rescued from a Haemonculi laboratory. The ceramite of his augmetic hand creaks as he clenches his fist. They removed my primary heart while I watched. Then they made me thank them for the experience. What makes the Haemonculi truly terrifying is not their sadism, it's their expertise. Death, the final mercy, is denied to their subjects through horrific technological mastery. A Space Marine's enhanced physiology, designed to endure incredible trauma, becomes their greatest curse in these chambers. The regenerative properties that allow us to survive battlefield injuries, explains Apothecary Vero, make us perfect subjects for their experiments. They can tear us apart and watch us heal over and over. Our bodies betray us by refusing to die. The laboratories contain row upon row of glass tanks, each holding suspended body parts, still living, still feeling, connected by tubes pulsing with dark fluids. Some tanks contain what were once proud warriors, now reduced to torsos with exposed nervous systems, kept alive for decades of continuous experimentation. Most disturbing are the specialized chambers designed specifically for Space Marines. The Haemonculi have studied their physiology extensively, creating custom tortures that bypass their enhanced pain thresholds and psychological conditioning. They showed me Brother Cassius. Marcus continues, his voice hollow. He'd been missing for 30 years. His body was spread across 7 different tanks, each part still conscious, still aware. The homunculus told me they were just getting started with him. The Dark Eldar feed on suffering like a drug, and Space Marines provide the most potent high of all, superhuman bodies and minds experiencing superhuman agony. But what truly makes these chambers unbearable is the knowledge that whispers through every Space Marine's mind when they contemplate capture. Even their legendary willpower has limits. Given enough time in the Haemonculi's laboratories, even the Emperor's finest will break completely. In the obsidian corridors of Commorragh, there exists a hierarchy of suffering. At its pinnacle stands the Space Marine, not as conqueror, but as the most coveted prize in the Dark City's endless hunger for pain. The Adeptus Astartes last longer, whispers Haemonculus Vexus to his apprentice, his needle-thin fingers tracing the reinforced ribcage of a suspended ultramarine sergeant. Their enhanced physiology is a canvas that refuses to tear, no matter how deeply we cut. The Marine hangs in silence, jaw clenched so tightly the tendons in his neck strain like cables. 3 weeks he has endured. 3 weeks where most humans wouldn't survive 3 hours. The slave pits of Commorragh aren't mere holding cells. They're processing centers where captives are evaluated, categorized, and prepared. Space Marines receive special attention. Their gene-enhanced bodies are systematically tested for pain thresholds that would kill ordinary humans 100 times over. Drukhari pain masters have developed specialized neural hooks that bypass even a Space Marine's ability to compartmentalize agony. These barbed instruments slide between the vertebrae, attaching directly to the enhanced nervous system, preventing the warrior from retreating into cataleptic meditation or pain suppression techniques. Their souls burn brighter, explains Archon Ervax, inspecting a recent haul of white scars captured during a real space raid. The Emperor's enhancements make them perfect batteries. They generate enough agony to sustain 10 Drukhari for a year. The most terrifying aspect isn't the physical torment. It's what awaits after death. Space Marines are designed to endure, to resist, to overcome. But in Commorragh, this resilience becomes their greatest curse. Their enhanced souls, forged in battle, tempered by faith, provide a feast that lesser humans cannot match. When finally broken, their souls aren't simply consumed. They're fractured, split into dozens of crystalline shards that Drukhari aristocrats wear as jewelry. Each fragment still somehow conscious, still somehow screaming. In the deepest recesses of the Dark City, there exists a chamber known as the Vault of Echoes. Here, thousands of soul shards from fallen space marines hang suspended in stasis fields. Each contains a fragment of memory, of identity, of the warrior they once were. Drukhari nobility visit to experience the unique agony of a soul that was engineered to never surrender, now trapped in eternal torment. Even the Emperor's finest fear this fate above all others. Battle brothers who have witnessed comrades taken by Drukhari raiders often choose suicide over capture. Chapter doctrines include specific protocols should warriors face imminent capture by the denizens of Commorragh. An Imperial guard captain once recorded the words of a dying space wolf, his drop pod surrounded by Drukhari raiders. "Grant me death, human. Emperor's mercy. What awaits in their city is beyond your comprehension." The sergeant hanging in Vexus's laboratory suddenly opens his eyes. Despite weeks of torment, they still burn with defiance. The homunculus leans closer, fascinated by this persistence. "Tell me, Monkey," he whispers, "what sustains you when your transhuman flesh has nothing left to give?" The Space Marine's cracked lips part, revealing blood-stained teeth formed into what might be a smile. "The knowledge," he rasps, "that my brothers are coming for me." Vexus tilts his head, amused, until the distant sound of explosions reverberates through the walls. And for the first time in centuries, the Haemonculus feels something long forgotten: fear. Even the Emperor's finest, genetically enhanced, psycho-indoctrinated, and battle-hardened for centuries, break in Commorragh's slave pits. Captured Space Marine brother Tarvis of the Ultramarines had survived 300 years of warfare. His enhanced physiology had shrugged off bolter wounds, acid burns, and Xenos toxins. But here, suspended in a crystalline cage that magnified pain receptors, he finally understood true suffering. The Adeptus Astartes are particularly valuable specimens, whispers Haemonculus Vexus, his elongated fingers tracing the surgical instruments arranged before him. Their resilience extends our entertainment. The Haemonculi, Commorragh's flesh sculptors, approach Space Marine captives as artistic challenges. Their laboratories reek of antiseptic chemicals layered over the copper penny scent of transhuman blood. The constant background melody, the low hum of stasis fields preserving severed parts for later reattachment. Brother Tarvis had not screamed for the first 17 days. The mental conditioning is impressive, notes Vexus to his apprentices, their pale faces gathered around the operating slab. But ultimately, insufficient. On day 18, they removed his secondary heart while he watched, fully conscious. By day 22, they had systematically disconnected his Lyman's ear, neuroglottis, and catalepsian node, the very organs that made him superhuman. The Drukhari never rush. A space marine might survive decades in the slave pits, his enhanced healing prolonging his torment. Records speak of one Dark Angel's captain who endured 97 years before his mind finally fractured. What breaks them is not the pain. It is the methodical deconstruction of their identity. Today, Vexus announces, lifting a neural flare, we begin removing his memories of Ultramar. The Drukhari understand that Space Marines draw strength from their chapter's history, their Primarch's legacy, their battle brothers' sacrifices. So they extract these memories, one by one, like pulling threads from a tapestry until nothing remains. When Brother Tarvis finally screamed, it wasn't from physical agony. It was when he could no longer remember his Primarch's name. Sometimes, the Cabalites arrange fights between captured Space Marines who have been physically and mentally broken. The Wyches place bets on which one remembers enough of their combat training to triumph. The winners receive no mercy, only more elaborate torments as reward for their resilience. Even Imperial records acknowledge the grim fate awaiting captured Astartes. Chapter Masters instruct their warriors to trigger their Susan membrane, entering suspended animation, or detonate their gene seed rather than be taken alive by the Drukhari. In the depths of the Imperial Palace on Terra, there exists a sealed vault containing the only first-hand account of a Space Marine who escaped Commorragh's slave pits. The text remains classified by inquisitorial decree, deemed too disturbing for even chapter masters to read. Brother Tarvis eventually stopped screaming. Not because the pain lessened, but because the Haemonculi removed his vocal cords, replacing them with crystalline resonators that transformed his screams into harmonies that pleased their refined ears. And in the observation galleries above the slave pits, Archon Vrelith sips from a chalice filled with distilled Space Marine agony, savoring the rarest vintage in his collection. But what truly terrifies the Imperium isn't that Space Marines can be broken in Commorragh. It's that sometimes they aren't allowed to stay broken. The Haemonculi call it the symphonic dismemberment, the methodical reduction of a Space Marine to his component parts while keeping him conscious through it all. Brother Thalion of the Ultramarines had endured 17 days. His superhuman physiology, designed to withstand the most extreme battlefield trauma, had become his greatest curse. The redundant organs, enhanced healing, and pain suppression, all of it perverted to extend his suffering beyond mortal limits. "Your kind is rare here," whispered the Haemonculus, his voice like glass scraping bone. "Such a delightful challenge." The laboratory air hung thick with the metallic tang of transhuman blood and acrid chemicals that burned the nostrils. Surgical implements gleamed under pale blue lights, their edges impossibly sharp, their purposes unimaginable. Thalion's primary, heart, had been removed 3 days ago. It sat in a crystalline container beside him, still beating, connected to him through gossamer tubes of dark technology. His secondary heart labored alone in his chest cavity, now partially exposed through a precisely maintained surgical window. "The Mon key breaks so quickly," the Haemonculus continued, selecting a tool that hummed with malevolent energy. "But you, Adeptus Astartes, your bodies resist, your minds persist, your souls cling." The walls themselves seemed to pulse with the collected agony of countless victims. Other Space Marines had been here before, their gene seed harvested, their enhanced bodies dissected layer by layer, their transhuman resilience providing months of entertainment. From nearby chambers came the screams, not the desperate wails of the newly captured, but the hollow, broken sounds of those who had been there for decades. Some were former battle brothers, their minds shattered, but their enhanced bodies refusing to die. "Your Imperium believes your kind cannot know fear," the Haemonculus said, leaning close enough that Thalion could smell the sweet decay on his breath. "Yet I have catalogued 17 distinct variations of terror in Space Marines alone." Thalion tried to summon his mental conditioning, the hypno-indoctrination designed to shield him from psychological torture. But the Drukhari had ways of bypassing these defenses, psychotropic compounds that targeted the unique neurochemistry of Space Marines, turning their mental fortress into a prison of nightmares. "Today," the Haemonculus said with clinical precision, "we begin work on your catalepsy node. Thalion knew what that meant. The implant allowing space marines to function without sleep would be manipulated, forcing him into a state of perpetual wakefulness while maintaining full sensory awareness. No respite, not even in unconsciousness. The most terrifying truth of Commorragh's slave pits wasn't the pain itself, but the revelation that even the Emperor's finest could be unmade. Here, the transhuman became merely human again, vulnerable, afraid, and ultimately broken. In the corner of the laboratory stood a display case containing 17 ceramic emblems, chapter badges removed from Space Marine armor. The Haemonculi lovingly placed his fingers on the case. "Yours will make a fine addition," he said, "though none of your brothers lasted as long as the Iron Hand. Would you like to meet what remains of him?" The door behind the Haemonculi slid open, revealing something that, despite all his training, all his faith, all his transhuman resilience, made Brother Thalion finally scream. The screams in Commorragh never truly end. They merely change in pitch and intensity. Brother Marius of the Ultramarines had endured 17 days in the slave pits. His enhanced physiology, designed to withstand the most extreme battlefield conditions, was being systematically dismantled by something far worse than mere physical pain. "The Dark Eldar don't just want your body," he whispered to the dying Imperial guardsman beside him. "They feed on your suffering. They harvest it." The air in the slave pits carried a metallic tang that coated the tongue, the taste of fear made manifest. Beneath it lurked something sweeter, almost cloying, psychic energy being siphoned from thousands of tortured souls. What made Commorragh's slave pits unique in the galaxy wasn't the implements of torture, though they were masterworks of cruelty refined over millennia. It wasn't even the surgical precision with which pain was administered. It was that death offered no escape. Dark Eldar Haemonculi, the master torturers of Commorragh, had perfected the art of soul trapping. Crystalline matrices hummed throughout the pits, vibrating with captured consciousnesses. The dead continued to suffer long after their bodies had been discarded. "They showed me my battle brother yesterday," Marius continued, his voice cracking. "Tiberius died 3 weeks ago, but they've kept his soul. They make me watch what they do to it." The walls themselves seemed to pulse with malice. Shadows moved independently of light sources, reaching toward the prisoners with hungry tendrils. The temperature fluctuated wildly, burning heat followed by bone-chilling cold, never allowing adaptation or comfort. Even space marines, with their hypno-indoctrination against fear and superhuman tolerance for pain, found themselves breaking in Commorragh. Their enhanced senses betrayed them, making them more receptive to the exquisite torments designed by beings who had spent thousands of years perfecting the craft of suffering. "I can feel them. Feeding," Marius whispered. "Each time I scream, something leaves me. They drink it like wine." A Dark Eldar overseer approached, skin pale as moonlight stretched over sharp features. Her footsteps made no sound on the obsidian floor, yet every prisoner tensed as she passed. The air temperature dropped 10 degrees in her wake. "The Archon requires entertainment tonight," she announced, voice like silk over broken glass. "We need volunteers." No one moved. No one breathed. "The Space Marine, then," she decided, pointing at Marius, with a finger tipped by a foot-long crystalline talon. "And bring his soul crystal, the one containing his battle brother." Marius, who had faced Tyranid hive fleets without flinching, began to tremble. "Tonight," the overseer continued, her smile revealing needle-like teeth, We'll see if we can make two souls occupy one body. The process is excruciatingly enlightening. As they dragged him away, Marius caught the eye of a newly captured space marine from another chapter. The warning in his gaze was clear. Physical death was not the worst fate in Commorragh. Not by far. And as the doors to the experimentation chambers hissed open, revealing instruments that defied comprehension, Marius realized that his 17 days of torment had merely been preparation for the true horrors of Commorragh's slave pits. They say space marines know no fear. A convenient lie. The archives of the Ordo Xenos contain exactly 17 recorded testimonies from Adeptus Astartes, who survived Commorragh's slave pits. Each account is sealed with the highest clearance, accessible only to Inquisitor lords. Not for their tactical value, but because of what they reveal about the limits of transhuman conditioning. Brother Thaddeus of the Ultramarines' 4th Company spoke only once of his 63 days in captivity. The recording captures the tremor in his voice, a physiological impossibility for an Astartes, as he describes the arena known as the crucible of flesh. The air tastes of copper and electricity, he whispers, his enhanced memory cursing him with perfect recall. They force you to fight your battle brothers while neural whips override your motor functions. You remain conscious, trapped inside your body, as your hands tear apart those you've served with for centuries. The interrogation transcripts of Brother Corvan of the Raven Guard tell a different horror. The Haemonculi discovered that space marine healing factors could be exploited indefinitely. Corvan endured surgical dismemberment daily for what he estimates was 3 years. The pain becomes your universe, reads his testimony. They harvest your organs while you watch, keeping you conscious with stimulants that burn through your veins like molten promethium. Then they return tomorrow to collect what has regrown. But these accounts hide something unexpected, something that contradicts the Imperium's carefully cultivated myth of the fearless Astartes in the sealed testimony of Brother Malachi, formerly of the Iron Hands. We find the truth the Imperium cannot accept. We broke, he confesses, voice barely audible. Not just our bodies, our minds, our souls. The Dark Eldar don't just want our pain. They want our surrender. The recording continues with something unprecedented. An Astartes weeping. I betrayed everything. I gave them battle plans, chapter secrets, Terra's coordinates. I would have sacrificed 1 billion Imperial lives for 1 moment's respite. The most disturbing revelation comes from Brother Varys of the Imperial Fists, who speaks of the conversion chambers where Drukhari psychers and fleshcrafters work in concert to remake an Astartes' mind. They don't just break you, he testifies, his voice hollow. They remake you. Some brothers emerged worshipping pain. Others became willing hunters, tracking escaped slaves through the lower districts. The strongest among us became the worst monsters. Perhaps most chilling is what these testimonies reveal about the Dark Eldar themselves. These are not simply acts of cruelty, but a sophisticated science. The Drukhari understand space marine physiology and psychology better than the Imperium itself. They have books, Brother Varys whispers. Ancient tomes filled with Astartes' anatomical drawings, dating back to the Great Crusade. They've been studying us for 10,000 years. When asked if any defense exists against such horrors, all 17 testimonies offer the same answer: death before capture. But what happens when even death is denied to the Emperor's finest? Even among the Dark Eldar's countless captives, space marines are considered the ultimate prize. Their genetically enhanced bodies, designed to withstand the galaxy's most horrific warfare, offer unique opportunities for suffering that excite even Commorragh's most jaded torturers. In the deepest pits of Commorragh, a chamber exists known as the Vault of Resilience. Here, 27 space marines from various chapters hang suspended in molecular shackles that prevent even their superhuman muscles from breaking free. The trick isn't breaking their bodies, explains a Haemonculi named Vexus to his apprentice, running a talon across the exposed chest cavity of an ultramarine sergeant. It's breaking something designed never to break. The space marine's twin hearts still beat, even as Vexus methodically severs each nerve ending, one by one. The marine's face remains stoic, his conditioning holding firm. But his eyes, those betray everything. The Haemonculi have learned that space marines can withstand almost any physical torment. Their bodies regenerate, their pain thresholds exceed even Eldar understanding, and their mental conditioning prevents psychological collapse. This resilience makes them not less desirable captives, but more. Watch his eyes. Vexus instructs, leaning close to the marine's face. 347 years I've kept this one alive. 3 centuries of uninterrupted agony. The air reeks of antiseptic chemicals and the coppery tang of transhuman blood. The temperature fluctuates wildly, burning heat followed by freezing cold. Another form of torment engineered specifically for space marine physiology. In one corner, a white scar has been dismembered completely, his head and torso kept alive through Dark Eldar technology. His consciousness remains intact, forced to watch as his gene seed is extracted and corrupted for experiments that would make even the most hardened inquisitor vomit. We discovered something remarkable about space marines. Vexus continues, voice barely above a whisper. Their bodies may never truly break, but their souls. He gestures to a blood angel suspended in the center of the chamber. This space marine doesn't struggle or resist. His eyes are vacant, mouth hanging open. Occasionally, a sound emerges. Not a scream, but a laugh. A hollow, empty laugh. This one lasted 97 years before his mind shattered completely. Now he serves as entertainment at Archon Blackheart's gatherings, reciting Imperial battle hymns while we feed him the flesh of his battle brothers. The most disturbing revelation comes from a small side chamber. Here, 3 space marines wear no restraints. They move freely, helping the Haemonculi with their work. Their chapter insignias have been flayed from their shoulders, replaced with Dark Eldar runes. Our greatest achievements, Vexus says with genuine pride. After centuries of perfect torment, they simply changed. Their loyalty to the Emperor replaced by devotion to pain. The fallen Marine's eyes glow with unnatural light as they methodically torture their former brothers. Their movements are precise, knowledgeable. They know exactly how a Space Marine's body works, where to cut to maximize suffering without causing death. Even in the grimdark future where there is only war, some fates are worse than death. And as the screams echo through Commorragh's slave pits, one terrible truth emerges. Not even humanity's greatest warriors are truly unbreakable. But the most horrifying secret of Commorragh's slave pits isn't what they do to Space Marines. It's what they create from them. Even the mighty Space Marines, genetically engineered super soldiers who know no fear, speak of one place in hushed tones. Not out of reverence, but pure dread. The Haemonculi experimentation chambers of Commorraghs lie in the deepest recesses of the Dark City, where the air itself tastes of copper and decay. These are not mere torture chambers. They are laboratories where pain is refined into an art form that transcends death itself. The Space Marine awakened, suspended in a viscous fluid, whispered Archon Vraex, his voice carrying the detached fascination of a collector describing a prized specimen. His enhanced physiology had already healed the superficial wounds, but the Haemonculi had only just begun. The chambers pulse with sickly green bioluminescence, casting writhing shadows across walls lined with implements that defy understanding. Each tool designed not to kill, but to prolong, to extend suffering beyond what any mortal mind can comprehend. A captured Imperial fists. Astartes once described the experience before his mind shattered completely. My twin hearts were removed while I remained conscious, replaced with crystalline pumps that circulated acid through my veins. I felt every cell burn for what seemed like centuries. The Haemonculi themselves are barely recognizable as once Eldar. Their bodies are grotesquely modified, spines elongated, additional limbs grafted on, skin stretched and stitched into impossible configurations. They hover on anti-gravitic suspensors, trailing mechadendrites and tubes filled with fluids harvested from their victims. What makes these chambers truly terrifying to even the Emperor's finest is the Haemonculi mastery of resurrection. Space Marines are conditioned to accept death in service, but not eternal torture. When the subject finally expired, continued Vraex, his eyes glittering with remembered pleasure, the Haemonculi simply restarted him, fresh, ready for new experiments. The look of comprehension in the Astartes' eyes when he realized death would offer no escape. The walls of these chambers contain thousands of specialized cells, each maintaining a subject in a precise state of agony. The screams harmonize into what the Dark Eldar consider symphonies. Sound-dampening fields ensure each victim cannot draw comfort from knowing others suffer nearby. Each is trapped in a bubble of isolated torment. What the Imperium doesn't know is that 17 Space Marines, including representatives from 9 different chapters, remain in these chambers today. Their gene seed extracted and replicated, their bodies repeatedly rebuilt after being systematically disassembled. The Haemonculi consider Space Marines the perfect subjects, explained a renegade Dark Eldar who later died under inquisitorial questioning. Enhanced healing, superior pain thresholds, psychological conditioning against breaking. All these qualities don't prevent suffering. They merely extend the experience. The most disturbing revelation came from a single Vox transmission, intercepted from deep within Commorragh by an Ordo Xenos listening post. The voice, identified as belonging to a blood angel reported missing 3 centuries earlier, was still coherent enough to form words. Emperor, forgive me. I told them everything, not just about our defenses or tactics. I told them how to break us, how to make us feel fear again. The transmission ended with sounds no human throat should produce. But what terrified the Inquisition most wasn't the screaming. It was the laughter that followed. The Commorragh crowd falls silent as the arena doors scrape open. Blood-slicked marble reflects the pale witchlight from above, casting sickly green shadows across the faces of thousands of Dark Eldar spectators who lean forward in anticipation. This is the Crucible, the grand arena where the most valuable slaves are broken for public entertainment. Today, we witness the fall of an angel, announces the Archon, his voice slithering through the arena like poisoned silk. A Space Marine of the Ultramarines chapter is dragged into the arena, his once proud ceramite armor stripped away, replaced with crude iron shackles that bite into his enhanced flesh. Even without his power armor, his transhuman physique towers over his Drukhari handlers. His face bears the stoicism of a warrior who has faced death 1,000 times. But never like this. The scent of fear sweat and spilled promethium hangs thick in the air. The temperature drops unnaturally as Haemonculi devices siphon heat from the arena, ensuring the Space Marine feels every lash of cold against his exposed skin. 18 days, whispers a pale succubus to her companions. 18 days since capture, and still he refuses to scream. The Marine's captors have tried everything. Nerve flayers that would reduce ordinary humans to babbling wrecks. Bone sculptors that reshape skeletal structures while victims remain conscious. Even psychic torments designed to erode his mental conditioning. Yet this Space Marine has endured. The crowd grows restless. They haven't paid in slaves and favors to witness stoicism. They want suffering, exquisite, transcendent suffering. The Archon raises a crystalline device. Perhaps you believe your Emperor protects you, Space Marine? That your enhanced physiology will save you. The device pulses with unnatural light, and suddenly the Marine's genetically enhanced senses, his greatest assets, become his worst enemies. Every sound amplifies 1,000-fold. The rustling of clothing sounds like avalanches. The breathing of spectators becomes deafening thunder. His skin registers each air current as searing pain. Your Primarch's gifts, the Archon purrs, now serve our entertainment. For the first time, the Marine's expression changes. A slight widening of the eyes, the barest tremble of his jaw. The crowd leans forward, drinking in this first crack in his facade. From the shadows, other captives watch. Imperial guardsmen with hollow eyes. Tau diplomats whose blue skin has grayed from months of torment. Even a sister of battle, her faith tested beyond human endurance. They all know what the Space Marine is just learning. In Commorragh's pits, even transhuman willpower eventually breaks. It's not a question of if, but when. The Archon circles the Marine, dragging a finger across his shoulder. Your brothers who came before you. Do you know how long they lasted? The Space Marine's eyes flicker with recognition. Other chapters had lost battle brothers to Commorragh's slave raids. The longest survived 43 days before begging for death. The Archon continues. I wonder if Guilliman's sons will prove more resilient. The Marine's lips move in silent prayer as the crowd's anticipation builds to a frenzy. But what happens next makes even the most jaded Drukhari aristocrats rise from their seats in shock. Even the Emperor's finest have protocols for when capture is imminent. But in Commorragh, these take on a grotesque urgency. Sergeant Varius of the Ultramarines still remembers the briefing before their raid on a Dark Eldar slave transport. The chapter's apothecary had distributed small blue capsules to each battle brother. The cyanide compound works in 3 seconds. The apothecary had explained, voice flat as if discussing ammunition logistics. If the Xenos take you alive into Commorragh, you'll beg for this mercy, Space Marines, genetically engineered super soldiers designed to know no fear, accepting suicide pills. The irony wasn't lost on Varius. The capsules had a distinctly bitter almond smell that lingered on the fingertips. Some younger Marines had scoffed. They were the Emperor's finest, after all. Capture was unthinkable. Then they found Brother Quintus. The Dark Eldar had returned him to the edge of Imperial space as a message. His power armor had been peeled away, along with most of his enhanced skin. His primary heart had been removed, but the secondary kept beating. Pain-amplifying neural implants ensured he felt everything with exquisite clarity. He had been missing for only 17 days. They have methods. Quintus had whispered through lips that had been removed and reattached incorrectly. They feed on suffering like we need oxygen. The Haemonculi, Commorragh's flesh sculptors, had a particular fascination with Astartes' physiology. Their regenerative capabilities meant they could endure torments that would kill lesser beings. They called me their infinity canvas. Quintus had managed before convulsing. Said I could be unmade and remade forever. In the slave pits, space marines receive special attention. Their enhanced bodies are methodically taken apart, organs removed while conscious, then regrown using Dark Eldar regeneration technology, only to begin again. The process can continue for centuries. Imperial records document the recovery of one Salamander space marine who had been missing for 3 standard years. Upon rescue, medical examination revealed his body had been completely disassembled and reassembled an estimated 78 times. He never spoke again. His gene seed was deemed too corrupted for harvest. The most disturbing accounts come from the few who have witnessed the endless arenas. Here, space marines are forced to fight, while systematically hobbled, limbs removed, senses dulled, yet enhanced with stimulants to prevent unconsciousness. The Dark Eldar audience doesn't cheer for victory, but for the most prolonged displays of agony. Inquisitor Karamazov's classified report describes how captured Marines are sometimes implanted with psychic beacons, allowing their battle brothers to sense their torment across vast distances. A psychological weapon against their chapters. Varius now keeps 2 cyanide capsules, one for his primary digestive tract, one for his secondary. The Emperor protects, goes the Marine battle cry. But in whispered conversations, veterans add a grim addendum when speaking of Commorragh. But sometimes, only you can protect yourself from what's worse than death. And perhaps most terrifying of all, the Dark Eldar know this. They've begun collecting the souls of Marines at the exact moment of suicide, capturing that final desperate act in soul-trapping devices. Because in Commorragh, even escape through death is becoming just another form of entertainment. Even the Emperor's finest break in Commorragh. Brother Marius hung suspended in a translucent amniotic tank, his genetically enhanced body floating in a viscous amber fluid that burned like acid with every labored breath. 3 weeks ago, he had been a proud ultramarine. Now, he was simply specimen 437A. Fascinating resilience, whispered the Haemonculus, its spindly fingers tapping against the glass. The ancient torturer's face was a patchwork of stolen flesh, eyes mismatched and gleaming with scientific curiosity. The Mon-Key's gene seed actively fights our toxins. The laboratory hummed with the mechanical whirring of arcane machinery. The air tasted of copper and chemicals, punctuated by the occasional distant scream echoing through ventilation ducts. Around Marius, 5 other space marines hung in similar tanks, some conscious, others mercifully unconscious. The Haemonculus pressed a button, sending electric current surging through the fluid. Marius's enhanced physiology, designed to withstand the most extreme battlefield conditions, betrayed him now, keeping him conscious through pain that would have killed a normal human instantly. Record the neural patterns, the torturer instructed an assistant. This one's pain threshold exceeds our baseline by 437%. Space Marines, the Imperium's ultimate warriors, were rare prizes in Commorragh. Their enhanced healing made them perfect subjects for the Haemonculi's most sadistic experiments. Their bodies could be taken apart and reassembled countless times, their organs harvested and regrown. Marius had watched as they removed his secondary heart yesterday, keeping him conscious as they studied its still-beating rhythm outside his chest. His enhanced clotting had prevented him from bleeding out. His accelerated healing had kept him alive. The Primarch's gifts have become your curse, Space Marine. The homunculus crooned, face pressed against the glass. Your body refuses to die, refuses to break. How wonderful. In the corner, a Drukhari noble watched with casual interest, sipping from a chalice filled with a liquid too dark to be wine. These exhibitions were common entertainment for Commorragh's elite, paying exorbitant prices to witness the breaking of the galaxy's mightiest warriors. I want to see how long the second heart functions independently, the noble said, voice lilting with boredom. Last month's specimen lasted 17 days. The homunculus bowed. We've made improvements to the preservation fluid, Archon. This one might last a month. Marius tried to focus on the Codex Astartes, on his oaths to the Emperor. But after weeks in the slave pits, the words were becoming harder to remember. They had taken 3 of his battle brothers already, not to kill them, but to remake them. When they returned, their armor had been grafted directly to mutated flesh, their minds broken and reprogrammed. The homunculus approached with a neural spike, designed to bypass even a Space Marine's enhanced pain resistance. Today we'll explore the limits of your legendary mental conditioning, it whispered. I wonder, how many sessions before you beg for death? The record stands at 43 days. Marius closed his eyes as the spike descended. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he saw something worse than the torture implements surrounding him. The twisted forms of his battle brothers, who had already broken, now serving their Drukhari masters with mindless obedience. And for the first time since his ascension to the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes, Marius felt true fear. They called them the Broken Angels, Space Marines, Emperor's finest warriors, reduced to whimpering shadows in the lightless pits of Commorragh. Their superhuman bodies, once symbols of mankind's might, now twisted experiments for Dark Eldar amusement. The archives of the Ordo Xenos, document 17, confirmed cases of Astartes taken alive to Commorragh. Only one ever returned. Brother Castivan of the Crimson Fists survived 913 days in the slave pits. When Imperial forces recovered him during a raid on a Dark Eldar satellite outpost, his primary heart had been replaced with a crystalline device that amplified pain signals tenfold. His secondary heart pumped not blood, but a luminescent fluid that kept him conscious through tortures that would have killed him. They never asked questions, his testimony reads. They never wanted information, only screams. The Haemonculi had flayed the ceramite from his bones, replacing segments of his enhanced skeleton with transparent materials so spectators could watch his organs function during the tortures. The whirring of mechanical saws still triggered seizures in him decades later. In the fighting pits, Space Marines are particular prizes. Their enhanced bodies can withstand torments that would kill lesser beings in seconds. Their genetic modifications mean they heal quickly, only to be broken again. Inquisitorial records describe the Fountain of Angels, a notorious arena where captured Space Marines were suspended upside down, their primary hearts removed but kept beating in glass containers above them. Their bodies, kept alive by their secondary hearts, were slowly lowered into acid baths while Dark Eldar nobles placed bets on how long each would last before screaming. The longest lasted 19 days. More disturbing still are accounts of psychic Marines. The Dark Eldar, lacking psychic abilities themselves, display particular fascination with these specimens. Librarians are kept in isolation chambers lined with the polished skulls of other psychers, forced to endure the whispers of the dead, while their captors harvest their cerebrospinal fluid to create exotic narcotics. But perhaps most chilling is what happened to Brother Castivan after his rescue. Though physically rehabilitated by the finest apothecaries, he could no longer serve. The mental conditioning that made Space Marines fearless had been systematically unraveled. The Haemonculi had found the psychological architecture of courage itself and dismantled it piece by piece. He took his own life 3 years after his return. We build monuments to heroes who die in battle. We have no rituals for those who return carrying darkness within them. In our own world, how many veterans return from war zones with invisible wounds? How many torture victims walk among us, their scars hidden beneath everyday clothes? What does it say about us that we understand physical pain but turn away from psychological torment? The Dark Eldar break bodies to reach the soul. Perhaps what makes us shudder is not just their cruelty, but the mirror they hold to our own capacity for indifference. If this darkness calls to you, that siren song of forgotten suffering, subscribe. For in remembering their pain, we honor those broken in body, but not in spirit. In the endless twilight of Commorragh, there exists a truth that breaks even the strongest minds. A truth that makes Astartes warriors, genetically engineered super soldiers who know no fear, tremble in the darkness of their nightmares. It isn't the pain, it isn't the humiliation. It's the terrible understanding that in Commorragh's slave pits, death is not the end. It is merely a transition. The Dark Eldar Haemonculi, those twisted flesh sculptors, have perfected the art of resurrection. Their bone-white fingers, stained with centuries of blood, can pull a soul back from the brink, not as an act of mercy, but as the ultimate cruelty. The first time they brought me back, whispered Brother Tarvis of the Ultramarines, his once proud voice now a fractured thing. I thought the Emperor had granted me salvation. By the 10th revival, I prayed only for oblivion. The air in the resurrection chambers carries the metallic tang of blood and the acrid burn of alchemical solutions. Vats of bubbling fluids glow with sickly green luminescence, housing disembodied organs and partially reconstructed bodies that twitch with unnatural life. When a slave's body finally surrenders to torture, the Haemonculi smile beneath their bone masks. The real work begins. Their needle-thin instruments extract what remains of the soul, preserving it in crystalline containers that pulse with trapped agony. The broken body is either repaired or parts harvested for other, more grotesque creations. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is released. Space Marines, with their enhanced physiology and genetic fortitude, present a special challenge, and therefore, a special delight. Their bodies resist death with stubborn determination. Their minds, conditioned against fear, take longer to break, but break they do. The Dark Eldar have learned that even these superhuman warriors have their limits. The knowledge that death offers no escape creates a psychological horror that even Astartes' conditioning cannot withstand. The certainty that their suffering has no end shatters something fundamental in even these most stalwart defenders of humanity. In the deepest pits, they keep the longest surviving specimens, Space Marines who have died and returned dozens, sometimes hundreds of times. Their bodies bear the scars of countless tortures, their minds fragmented beyond recognition. They no longer remember their chapter, their battle brothers, or even the Emperor they once served. They remember only pain. And this is why Commorragh's slave pits represent the ultimate dread in a galaxy filled with horrors. In a universe where warriors face demons and tyranids without flinching, it is the slave pits that haunt their prayers. Today, we too live in a world where our digital shadows may outlive us, where our suffering can be preserved and replayed for eternity. Where is our escape when everything is recorded, archived, remembered? What does it mean when even death cannot free us from the cages we've built? The Dark City's lesson echoes across time and space. Some fates are worse than death. Some hells have no exit. If this glimpse into the darkest corners of the 41st millennium has chilled your soul, remember that knowledge is power, but it comes at a cost. Subscribe to delve deeper into the shadows. After all, in darkness, we sometimes see most clearly.